Travis Kelce, the rock star, is calling all of us idiots. So he has J-Mac. He has a podcast, very popular podcast, Jason and Travis Kelce. And it drives Travis Kelce crazy when us media guys talk about maybe Pittsburgh moving on from their head coach, Mike Tomlin. Two things can be true. Andy Reid is a great coach, but it was time for him to leave in Philadelphia. They won a Super Bowl years later after he left. Tom Landry is a legend. It was time for him to go. He won 2 Super Bowls, he left, and they won 3 after. Bill Belichick, 6 Super Bowls, about to get run out of New England. Phil Jackson won 6 titles with the Bulls, and his owner and GM said, this is your final year. Enough. He left and won 5 more with the Lakers. 2 things can be true. Your team has plateaued. What you bring to the table, they no longer need, and your services would be great elsewhere. Nobody thinks Mike Tomlin's a lousy coach, but the NFL has pivoted to offense, and the Steelers have had a bottom 10 offense 5 straight years. However, what Mike Tomlin brings to the table, the ability to create toughness, high emotion, develop players, and a winning culture is needed all over this league. Chargers, Raiders, Washington. Look at all the job openings. You can argue Mike Tomlin fits with all of them. But you can also argue what he brings to the table, Pittsburgh has coming out of their eyes and don't need it anymore. They need somebody to take that toughness, an offensive coach, and elevate the offense because they become a bad offense. You know, there's a saying in every industry. You may have said this to yourself. Have you ever been driving home from work or driving to work? You're on a vacation with your wife or husband, and you turn and you say, after a really good career at a place, I feel like I've topped out here. Yes, we've all said it. I said it in my previous job. I've topped out. I need something new. Change is not a death sentence. Or is it an indictment of your resume? Mike Tomlin will have arguments to get into the Hall of Fame. He is a tough alpha, builds a winning culture, but I could argue Ben Johnson to the Steelers would be perfect, and Tomlin to the Raiders or the Chargers and Washington would be perfect. So great players get traded. Great coaches move on. Pat Riley for years has argued, you got about 10 years as a coach in one city, and then you become white noise, and then you just, players tune you out. They don't want to hear it any longer. There is a big difference in any industry between maybe you plateaued and your skills aren't needed as much as they used to be here, and you failed. Tomlin hasn't failed, but what he provides, the Steelers have more than enough of. And what they need, he's not necessarily in the new NFL a perfect fit for. It's a quarterback coach league. It's an offensive coach quarterback league in most instances. Where a defensive coach still works is if you have a great quarterback. Looks like we have one in Houston. We've got one in Buffalo. We've got one in Baltimore. And do you know where they have one? LA with the Chargers. There is an argument he is the perfect coach. What they lack is toughness, consistency. Isn't that exactly what the Chargers need? Everybody's talking Harbaugh. Everybody's talking Belichick. I could argue defensive coaches still work in this league if the quarterback is great. Buffalo, it looks like Houston, and the Chargers. And the media, sometimes we can be idiots. Yeah, I admit that. So I'm going to throw this out to you. So there's a story here today in The Athletic about the coaches that are in trouble. Atlanta, Carolina, Chargers guys already gone, Patriots, Commanders. Then they talk about the coaches that hang in the balance, Matt Eberflus, Antonio Pierce, Dennis Allen, Saints, Todd Bowles, Tampa. We talked about this yesterday. And then they have a separate category, wait until the playoffs. And they say Mike McCarthy. So we talked about this, I think, yesterday on the show. You can watch a really, really good movie, but if it's got a bad ending, you walk out of that theater and you're disappointed. I would say that is Mike McCarthy. So Mike McCarthy's winning percentage in his career is 62%. That's John Harbaugh's. His playoff record, 11 wins, 10 losses, 7 division titles, Super Bowl wins. Let's look at John Harbaugh. Oh, wait. They're virtually identical. Virtually identical. In fact, Mike even has a couple more division titles. It should be noted Mike McCarthy's had weird ownership situations. Green Bay doesn't have one, a negative, and Dallas has a semi-meddling one. Harbaugh's got arguably a top 4 to 5 owner in the league. Harbaugh has Lamar Jackson in his prime, had Joe Flacco, who was really good in his prime. Mike McCarthy had the most prickly quarterback in my lifetime, Aaron Rodgers, and a very, very good, not great quarterback in Dak Prescott. And yet Harbaugh, his record, and Mike McCarthy's record, we love Harbaugh. There's disdain for McCarthy. Same winning percentage. One has great ownership. One has non-meddling ownership. One has had 2 quarterback stars, Pro Bowl level, in their prime. I mean, Joe Flacco, Super Bowl MVP. Lamar Jackson, going to be a multiple MVP. And I'm not saying Aaron wasn't great, but if you look at what McCarthy's done, we don't like the way some of his big games end. Well, do we like the way Lamar's games end under Harbaugh? Not in the playoffs, we don't. Isn't it funny how we view John Harbaugh and how we view Mike McCarthy? Harbaugh's had the better ownership, which, I don't know, seems like about half of the entire ball game in this sport. Harbaugh, I'd argue, if you look at the numbers Lamar Jackson provides for his football team, they're dead even with Aaron Rodgers. Lamar Jackson's worth about 11 points a game. That's what Aaron was worth in his prime. Those are another galaxy numbers. I don't even know if Brady was worth 11 in New England. I don't think he was. So my takeaway is, but it's that clock management, it's that play calling. I've always pushed back on play calling. Very rarely do I think play calling decides games. Sark's getting beat up for play calling. Texas doesn't have the timeouts. They can't run the ball. They've got to throw it up. That's just the way it works. But it is interesting. McCarthy's a little bit like a great TV series, and you never really like the season finale. But it's good, and you keep coming back to it. But I think we beat up on him because, you know, it goes back to Peyton Manning's last year in Denver. He won a Super Bowl. He was awful in the regular season, but you remember the Super Bowl. Remember that Golden State-Cleveland NBA final where LeBron brings back the crown to Cleveland, how emotional it was? What a series. It was awful until Game 7. It was 3 games decided by 30-some points. It was an awful series with a great ending. So we think it's a great series. Peyton Manning's last year in Denver was awful with a great ending. McCarthy's been a very good B-plus A-minus coach. He's only just inches behind Andy Reid in winning percentage. He's ahead of Pete Carroll. He's tied with John Harbaugh, and we hold them all penthouse level. McCarthy, we want evicted. So is McCarthy's rep, you coach for the Cowboys and Packers, massive brands, huge TV ratings. We love Baltimore. They don't have the brand of the Packers or the Cowboys. When you coach the Packers and the Cowboys, Fox puts your games on the afternoon. NBC puts them on Sunday night. ESPN puts them on Monday night. Leagues, conferences, networks battled for Cowboy-Packer games, and Mike's the coach. And they've lost a lot of close games. So's Aaron. Just something to think about. Everybody, we're putting all these coaches that could get fired. And J-Mac said it yesterday, I believe. If McCarthy loses, let's say he does. Let's say he loses his second playoff game. I can't fire him. I can't fire him for that. If John Harbaugh loses his second with the MVP quarterback and clearly the best roster in the AFC, I can't fire John Harbaugh. Why can I fire McCarthy? If they both win a playoff game and lose the second, it's hard to win playoff games. Baltimore loses to Buffalo. Cowboys lose to the Niners. I can't fire McCarthy. You can't fire Harbaugh. But there's an absolute belief you should fire McCarthy if he loses a second playoff game. Got to win the first. I mean, both coaches are under heat to win the first, but it's interesting. If Harbaugh lost a second playoff game, we would not consider it a firing. McCarthy's in huge trouble. My question, should he be? Semi-meddling owner, no owner, B-plus quarterback, 62% winning percentage, Super Bowl, 7 division titles. Lines are perfectly up with John Harbaugh, who I love. I know. Facts and data getting in the way of your convictions. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.